Hello. Hello, you. Um, I am just setting up here. It's a little bit early. We're just about at 5 o'clock. I'm Dr. Rose Kuhn, if you don't already know that. And this series is related to spiritual dilemmas and how to be with ourselves from a spiritual perspective. And so, one of the things I want to address right away is that the intention of these podcasts. Now, I'm feeling a little nervous tonight, so I am going to look at my notes a little bit to keep me on track and on task, because this is a really important, I think, perspective to take in terms of where we see lie, cheat, and steal as part of how we might be avoiding ourselves and our spiritual practices. So I want to stay more on focus with that with you, but I want to be clear about the intentions of these YouTube lives and the other videos I've been doing in relation to spiritual dilemmas is to share thoughts and perspectives that will cultivate more insight and more connection for you, more willingness and excitement and curiosity about this element of life, this thing we call spirituality. And so I want to bring it about in a way that's a more casual, friendly conversation, if you can do that, about spirituality, and so that it's not so serious, it's not so scary, it's not so important, it's not so intense, because it can be all of those things. But if we come with it and come to this conversation in a much more fluid, connected way, then it doesn't have to be that. Another intention is that for me, spirituality is part of every single part of my day. It's not relegated to a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. It's not relegated to a church or a synagogue or an ashram. It's not relegated to my meditation room and my books. It's not relegated to that. It is part of every single element of my life. And so if I can engage with you in that way, that this is just an everyday conversation, then perhaps, again, it's not so scary or intense, and you might be more curious about it. The third piece that I want to talk about is the relationship we build, is that it's really hard to consider. We can talk about ourselves, and I talked about this last week and the week before, is the recovery of us in terms of how we speak to that higher self. How do we have that conversation between the part that's a know-it-all, we might call it the ego part, and wants to do it their way, and maybe there's a wiser part of us. And so I wasn't using the word divine or sacred in that, because I was wanting to get clearer about, yeah, we have this part of us that we think is human, but it's really trying to avoid humanness. And then there's a higher self that knows us to be not only this human being, but a spiritual being, a being of sacredness. And I think it's really challenging to cultivate a spiritual relationship with ourselves in terms of spirit relationship if we haven't had direct experiences with ourselves in terms of spiritual or sacred or divine experiences. And last week I mentioned peak experiences where we have moments of wonder and awe. Every night when I go out with Gracie for our walk and it's starry out, I am in awe of what is above me, all the stars that show out, and the moon, and the sunrise in the morning. I've taken some pictures; they're just beautiful. I'm in wonder and awe, and the divineness of everything is right there with me. So my point here is that we can't, in a sense, this is my perspective, I might be wrong, and I'd love to hear if you have a different perspective, but we can't, it's hard to have a spiritual experience. It's hard to know that unless we've had direct experiences with that sense of awe, that sense of wonder, that sense of connection with divinity. I've had experiences where I'm hearing angels, or I'm hearing guidance. I'm feeling the felt sense of something greater than myself in embracing me. So I've had experiences like that over and over and over again. And so that gives me evidence of that divinity that is beyond my physical knowing. And so I just, again, want to, so in a sense, reiterate, it's challenging to cultivate a spiritual spirituality, if you haven't yet had that experience, those direct experiences, that's where faith comes in, where it's like, okay, a lot of people have had experiences of this the divineness, and so I want to know that. I want to practice what I can to engage and in cultivate more of that in my life. I want those. So um, I will look at what's possible and what's of interest to me so that I can make that happen. So the last thing I want to say about this that will take us into the next part of our conversation is last week I kind of had fun with the idea um, of I talked about um, my aquariums. I have two aquariums and fish, and I love betta. And it's a hobby, and it's a hobby that I've had to be serious about, discipline myself, dedicate myself, and devote myself to. In a sense, I have to spend time researching how to not just have a fish in here, but what food do they need? What's the water parameters? What temperature? What plants do they like? All of those things I'm looking over there as we're talking. So it's a hobby, and I have to the level of discipline, devotion, and dedication will create a level of success and fulfillment for me with my fish. And I've lost fish; they've died. It's broken my heart, and it's like, no, this is something I really want to honor and practice because I love fish. I have them outside, I have them inside, and I love doing it. Hi, Marge. Nice to see you here. I'd love to know who's here. If you can come in and say hi, it would be great to see who's here. And so I was talking about my fish, and I was also talking about spirituality in the frame of a hobby, as opposed to it's a serious discipline, and you got to do it a certain way, and you've got to have the principles and all of those things. There's a truth to that. But when we look at it, and I think most of us do, we're dabbling in spirituality. Some people dabble in it. Some people are a little bit more focused, or they're greatly focused in depending on how deep they want to go with this practice, with this, what's possible here. And hi, Shannon. Nice to see you. Um, and so that's what I'm wanting to create for us is, in a sense, this little forum of opportunities to see where are we in this hobby of developing a spiritual practice, or bringing spirituality into every of our life, every element of our life. How do we do that? And how can we do that with each other? How can we share parts of ourselves, elements of ourselves, our own experiences, so that we can empower and support others, and maybe even inspire other people to be curious about who they are and what is this spiritual thing that people talk about. Not from a religious, dogmatic, here's what I should be doing, but here's the experience I'm having, the fulfillment of participating in this with myself and whoever else I choose to bring into that process. So, I think that's all. Yes, that's what I wanted to say. So let's look at this this thing I wanted to talk about. It's like quite often I spend all week thinking and working on and listening for and intuiting what's wanting to get said here about this. And I get to a point where I go, oh my God, this doesn't make any sense at all. And it's really, what's the point? So that is in service to transparency and truth, not coming into this lying and saying, oh yeah, I'm really confident about how I want to deliver this with you. I want to be how I want to deliver it with you. It's just like really natural and connected. And at the same time, I have some nervousness about this. So to share that with you out loud. So we're talking about lie, cheat, and steal, and how we do that in our everyday life. And what's the source of that? Where does that come from? What's the need to lie or cheat or steal? So what I want to do is explore all the ways we are doing something other than living in the truth and our integrity and in our impeccability. What has us lean into something other than what we know is the truth? Why do we live with the angst of being potentially found out when we're not telling the truth, rather than just tell the truth? I mean, we have good reasons, I suspect, um, and we'll talk about, but that's one of the questions. Um, Ways that I want to, the intention is to look at some of the ways that we dishonor ourselves and others through being less than honest with ourselves and others. So quite often when we cheat ourselves, when cheat and steal from ourselves, when we are allowing our dignity and we're not allowing the dignity of the other person. We do this all the time with sarcasm, or we put people down, or we judge them, or we give them a sense of they're doing it wrong, or they shouldn't be doing it the way they do. These are all ways that I think we cheat and steal from other people and ourselves. We lose the sense of connection when we do that, and we diminish the other person's dignity. I think I'm going to stay with a couple of major words. Dignity is a really important word. More importantly, it's a very important quality of being, quality of experience that uh, that I want every single person to not only know but to live in their life every day. I see that there's about 5 people here in the room, and if you can say hello in the chat, I'd love to say hello back at you and know who you're here, know who's here. So if you can do that, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm just very glad to see you. If what I'm saying is of value to you, I would love you to like this live, and also to subscribe if you want to be aware of when they come up again. So that would be great. Um, so this week, so tomorrow is a little story. Tomorrow, I'm going to have my first vaccination, the COVID vaccination. And I woke up this morning and I was just feeling really down. The sun came up, a beautiful sunrise, which we weren't supposed to have. I wasn't expecting it. This amazing sunrise, and I'm feeling down. The reason I was feeling down is like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to have this. Hi, Fred. Tomorrow I'm going to have this vaccination, and oh, I might have some side effects, and it's going to make me feel bad, and I really don't want to feel bad. And so I'm just feeling bad that I'm going to feel bad. And I thought, well, that's kind of silly. But that was an interesting moment for me to go, oh, look at that. And then the other thing that happened was in terms of developing and working on and coming with you and to you and be with you in these YouTube lives. It's like I like, what are you going to think, and what are you going to, are you going to stick around, and are you going to ask questions, and are you going to like reject me and think I'm an idiot or just wrong? And so that also was creating something in me. It was creating angst and anxiousness. So I was feeling down about. Oh, good. Shannon said she had her first vaccine and no side effects. Thank you, Shannon. So here I have this day, and I have clouded it with something that's not the truth. I've clouded myself with assumptions, perceptions, and worry about the future. And when I when I realized that, I went, I don't have to do that. That, in a sense, is a form of lying to myself, right? This moment, beautiful sunrise. I'm sitting in my beautiful little home with my wonderful dog, having my cup of tea. And do I need to worry? Do I need to tell myself these stories that are not really true? And so in that moment, I quieted myself and just let it all go and said, this is the kind of day I want. I want this joyful, peaceful, connected day with the day and all that is here, and look forward to being with you guys in a way that's embraces what shows up rather than having to structure and make sure I get everything right. So David's here again. Thanks, David. I'm glad to see you. Um, David says, "Hi, all. Thoughts, discernments of spirits is to protect one's sovereign integrity by the act of giving one's permission, where a deceiver can't get into one's mind without permission." Beautiful, beautiful. And that's a dilemma for so many of us because there have been so many of us, I would say. Um, Hi, Alyssa. Nice to see you. Uh, there, there are so many times that, especially as little children and innocent beings, where people who were deceiving us did get into our system. Our religions, quite often, the religion I grew up in, it was not, it didn't empower me to know and love myself and love the God that I knew was there. I felt deceived in that when I got to that point of going, wow, this is not honoring and not in dignity. This is not supporting and empowering me to have this spiritual relationship with the God, the divinity that is. So quite often we learn it's not safe to be us. It's not safe to tell our truth. And in fact, I told a story either last week or the week before where I told my mom I wasn't going to go to church anymore, and she didn't talk to me for 3 weeks. I mean, she just cut me out. That's that. I told my truth and honored my truth. And there's so many of us that live closeted in so many ways, whether it's our sexuality or our career life that we are so passionate about or may have a calling, and we hide it, or we don't let it be, we don't let ourselves shine through that way because we will get potentially harmed in some ways, because that has been a pattern for so many people. I work with an organization called the American Center for the Integration of Spiritually Transformative Experiences, CISTE.org. And this organization is for people who've had spiritually transformative experiences and where they need support, and where they need someone to help them, guide them through experiences that they've had maybe long time ago, but they've never been able to talk about their experience. So these are people who perhaps in a near-death experience or out-of-body experiences, or they hear voices as in channeling or mediums, and they don't know how to tell people, because when they told their mom, when they were this particular person when she was 5, her mom beat her up, basically. Not a good thing. So she stayed hiding for a long time. So many of us in our way hide who we are, and we not only hide from ourselves, but we hide from well, not only from what I meant to say is we don't hide just from other people, but we hide from ourselves as well. I'm 60, almost 69, and growing up in the 50s and 60s, there was this element of what was supposed to happen, and the imprint for me was you grow up, you get married, and you have children. Um, and I love my children. I'm really glad I have my children, but the marriage element was not a good thing for me. In a sense, who I am as a being, I'm relationships are more difficult. And maybe I lied to myself about needing a relationship. That I need a relationship is kind of a lie, not telling myself the truth. And in that deception, there's that deception again, David. I deceived my husband and both husbands in a sense. But that deception, I did that because I believed I needed something in order to make me whole or fulfilled in life. And that deception caused a lot of pain for everyone. And that's that place where we're lying to ourselves, or we're lying to another person. And so that's what we're talking about here, is how do we, what, at what point do we, how do we disconnect from that? It's kind of a bad habit. It's kind of a really bad habit to 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 be with. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that, if you have thoughts on that. Where is it for you that you find yourself not telling the truth to yourself, others? where is it that you might have, in a sense, when my marriage was a deception. I mean, I love my husband, but I didn't love him in the way that he deserved to be loved. So I cheated him out of that experience with me. I cheated and I stole something really important from him. And those are the things I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about cheating on your taxes or cheating on your wife or your husband or your partners. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how we do that in our soul. How do we do that here? I mean, even talking about it is kind of like, ow, where have we created deceptions in ourselves and others? And I have no doubt that I can honor that I was deceptive with him, but that also means I'm recognizing the truth of how I deceived myself, how my belief system was such that I thought this is what I needed to do, and so I did it. And fortunately, probably for him and for me, getting clearer about who I am and saying, this isn't honest, this isn't working. He's not happy, I'm not happy. How do we create something that could bring both of us more fulfillment? And so through divorce and on and on and on, here we are 40 some years later. So what's your experience and what's your thoughts about what I'm saying about lying, cheating, and stealing in life? So while I'm waiting and anticipating your potential chat in the little chat box, one of the ways that we lie a lot is by making excuses. We make excuses for being late. We make excuses for not following through with our agreements. We make excuses all over the place. And it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. And not only that, I mean, there's the part where we're making the excuse. I used to be late all the time at work. I'd come to work 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late. And I did that. And I'd have some excuse. Oh, the phone rang, or oh, this or that. And the point of the matter is I was late. And my excuses is something that I make up to keep me from getting in trouble. So when we make excuses, we are not in alignment with ourselves, and we're not in alignment with other people. We're dishonoring them. And again, we're cheating them out of the opportunity and the ability and the experience of being with me as an authentic person, on time, honoring my word, honoring my agreement. We do this a lot. I say we, as in people who have a job and go to work, but they're late all the time, or they take more time, or they're on Facebook, or they're doing something other than honoring their agreement to be doing what they said they're going to do. So this is an interesting element of life that we experience and do and participate in, not only as the excuse maker, but when people make excuses for not showing up on time, how do you respond to that? Do you say, "Yeah, okay, all right, I hear you," or do you go, "Wait, no, you made an agreement. You promised that you are going to be on time. Like, what's that about for you that you're not being on time?" So all of these elements are these areas, are pieces of our everyday life that, where we have an opportunity to explore this relationship with ourselves. Like, okay, I am not honest. I'm not, when I make excuses, I'm not honest. And what's that like inside me? What's it like inside you when you're making excuses for something that for not following up with an agreement? What's that like for you? Um, I'd love to hear what that is like for you, because I think most of us make those excuses, but you aren't even aware of it. When I was in my 30s, I was in Nova Scotia working there, and I was also part of a theater group. and we got a chance to go to Toronto to do a national theater group thing, which was pretty cool. Uh, and so we did our play, and one of the adjudicators, the head judge kind of guy, said what he said about it, and then he gave us this lecture about no excuses, and and it was one of the most profound moments of my life in terms of like I felt like he was talking directly to me and saying, "Okay, I keep making excuses for not showing up on time and for staying in a relationship that's not healthy for me, for," and then just the list, right? And what am I going to do about that? And this fellow was great because he said, there's no excuse that is a good excuse. And so you have your word, you make your agreements, and you keep them. End of story. And he would say, like, people then say, well, what if the car breaks down or whatever? It's like, have you checked your car lately? Do you keep it in good order? Do you check the tires? Do you do the things to make sure that you are going to show up when you say you're going to show up? David said, when a child cannot be honest and open, learns passive manipulation may begin. Yep. Thus lying, telling stories to parents, and thus self. Lying by omission or excuses. Yes, thanks, David. That's absolutely what we're talking about tonight. And that pattern of learning to be passively manipulative, yeah, that's so hard on. I'm saying those words that you said, and I'm just feeling it in my body because I can feel it. And I suspect you can too when you know that you're doing something other than being authentically honest. There's a book that came out, I think it was I'm Okay, You're Okay. And I think that's where the person used the terms cold pricklies and warm fuzzies. If you guys know which book that is, let me know. But that when David, when I'm even reading those words or thinking about that manipulation, and that's in a sense who I was for so long, um, I feel those cold pricklies every time I didn't tell the truth. And every time I did something that was not honest, I could feel those cold pricklies. And then, and the other side of that is when I am honest and authentic and transparent, I like the warm fuzzies I feel, and because I'm honoring myself, I'm honoring the me that I am, and that's a really cool thing. That's what I think this sort of spiritual evolution element can be for us. It's not about, again, spirituality is about this and you have to do A, B, and C, and you have to look F, G, and D, and you've got to have this. It's not about that. It's about this relationship that happens all day long with this person and this dog and those fish, and my clients and you. Is I'm in relationship with you and all of this all the time. And the more that I can be honest about that and direct about that and clear about that and say who I want to be, this kind of person, this is who I like being, then that makes me happy. And I think that's the whole point of, in a sense, of spiritual practice is I'm happy being me, and I'm a divine, I'm divinity in this form. And so I like that I like myself in this form. It's taken me a long time to get here, and it's cool. And I'm not here. It's like the book. I've arrived. This book. I've arrived. Well, sort of. Like I arrive, and then I move on to what's next. Next big adventure. So that's what I want for everyone, is for all of us to go, wow, where do I make excuses, and where am I not honoring myself and the other person? Um, for me, and I can, I know a lot of people who have issues with substances, but for me, I kept saying, okay, I'm going to stop eating such and such, and then I wouldn't. There you go, right? It's like I just didn't, and I didn't until I could. And there was a point where there was like a tipping point where life met me in a way that allowed me to make those choices a little bit easier. a thing I want to address here in the sense that, again, the idea of cultivating a spiritual practice. It's like sometimes it's just not that important yet because other things are more important um, to you. There are values and perceptions. For instance, when you're working and you're have a partnership and you might have children and you have this your home and you have all of those things that you are responsible to and responsible for, and how do you create a, a relationship with your spirit self at the same time? And that's why the cool thing of seeing that you don't have to go do a meditation for an hour or even 10 minutes. You can be more present to, how am I being with my child right now? How am I being with my partner right now? How am I being as I'm driving down the road to work? Am I being in am I being in peace and connection, or am I frantic, worrying about being late? These are the very moments where we can go, oh, I can practice being this. Um, it doesn't mean I'm going to be this all day. It just means that I can be aware of, oh, those cold, prickly, frustrating anxiousness, like I was talking about with thinking about that COVID vaccination. It's like, oh, I'm just going to be a miserable. It's like, to stop in this moment. That's not happening right now. This is a beautiful moment. How can I be in? Let's bring myself to peace in this moment, and generate that, more of that, please. And we'll see what happens when I have that shot. We'll see. The same with being here with you today is you're here and I'm here and we're having a dialogue and a connection, and it is what it is. And I'm enjoying myself, and I'm hoping that this is of value to you as well. If you're here and you haven't yet subscribed, I would love you to subscribe. And if what I'm saying to you is of value to you, I would love you to give me a thumbs up and like these live videos. That would be great. So, any questions, any thoughts? I'd love to hear what you're hearing, what's coming up for you as you're listening to this. Are there moments of recognition? Thank you for that. Are there moments of recognition in terms of going, "Ooh, yeah, that's what I do," or "Nope, that's not me. I don't lie, cheat, or steal. Never have, and never will." So let me know what is your experiences, if you will. So other ways that we may be lying is or not being in our truth is when we're justifying. We justify and rationalize, making choices with our word or our commitment. This happens in my work as a transformational coach. Uh, People come to me because they want something. They want to accomplish something. They want to fulfill some sense of themselves in some way. And quite often, when they will agree to do some practice areas during the week during our time apart, and then they come back and they go, well, and then they'll justify why they didn't do what they did. And it doesn't matter to me that they did it or not. They don't have to justify it. They can just say, no, I didn't do it. Like, great. So what got in the way? What did you do? What did you notice? What did you see? And in that way, there's no blame and there's no shame. And that's another element of where we tend to be dishonest or not in the truth, is where we blame ourselves or others for how it is. From the spiritual perspective, and timelessness and eternalness, nothing matters. It is what it is. And in that isness, there's no blame, there's no shame, there's no wrong, there's no right. Rumi says, in the field beyond right and wrong, I will meet you there. And that's so cool because there's none of that stuff, no blame or shame, or I could have, or you should have, or any of that stuff. It's just like, this is what is. Here's what is. Let's talk about it. And I've had these conversations with a number of people where it's this one particular client, I'll call him Harry. He um, had a difficult time having clear communications and conversations with people, and it was because he was afraid. I mean, he'd always kind of see them as the guy, the wrong guy, or the guy that was the other guy was the making the problem. And he two things he couldn't have the conversation to say, let's just look at this, let's see this just as it is, not who's wrong or who's right, but let's just look at how it is. And that's a really wonderful thing to do in terms of saying, here's what it is. There's no right or wrong, there's no good or bad, there just is what is. And if we can talk about it, then we can decide how we want to move forward with what is. And that's a very cool thing. It's very challenging because we're so trained, as again David is saying, it's like we're so trained to do things that avoid conflict, because conflict means the potential for vulnerability. I had a client yesterday. We talked about this, and afterwards, I felt hugely vulnerable because just even the conversation stirred in me that sense of what's underlying everything that we do, in a sense, even in these conversations about lie, cheat, and steal, is there's a vulnerability that we're attempting to protect and trying to avoid. We want to stay invulnerable. And so when we can lie or cheat or steal or make somebody else wrong, we feel invulnerable. And in that, it's like, okay, nobody's gonna hurt me because I got my armor up. But the truth is that there's always that cold prickly that that sense of ew, because I didn't tell the truth. Shannon says, it makes me laugh when I connect lying to how I tell myself things are a certain way, when in fact I have no clue how things are going to turn out. Thank you. Oh my God, I lie to myself all the time. Thank you, Shannon. Yeah, I'm holding my heart here because it's true. I lie all the time, and I'm learning to not do that. Uh, an interesting perspective, an interesting statistic came up the other day, and it said 80% of what we do in life is for approval. And I didn't like hearing that because it's like, nope, not me. But I know that's where I was, and for a very, very, very long time. I want approval so that I have that security, so that I'm invulnerable to loss. And that was a lot of what, for me, marriage was about, or being with a man is about, was the dependency factor and the invulnerability factor, having that base covered, I thought. And so when I heard this, that 80% of our activities, our behaviors, even our thoughts, if you think about it, is about getting approval, wanting approval, living for approval, and approval being loved, worthy, accepted, validated, not rejected, not denigrated, all of those things. So when you think about, and this is part of that lying thing and cheating ourselves, when we're trying to get approval from other people, to what degree does that keep us from aligning with our highest truth, our highest knowing, our highest contribution to the world? That's a big question. And it's like, ooh, it's like, it feels really uncomfortable to think about the time that I've spent in my life looking for approval from others. Even again this morning, going, okay, are they going to approve? Are you guys going to approve of me today in this kind of? And it's like, I got to let that go. I got to let that go so that I can be in my truth and in my fullest expression as it comes out in this moment, and not planned. I have my few notes, but generally it's me here doing this. And if I look for approval, or concerned about approval, I don't do that. I don't get to be me in this expression, and hopefully inspire you to be in your fullest expression, her highest contribution to whatever it is you're wanting to bring to the world. So that's really, really, really important. So thank you, Shannon, for bringing that in. And again, the degree to which you can be mindful, and each of us can be mindful of like, wow, what am am I doing what I'm doing now to seek approval or to make sure I'm approved of or validated or worthy? What is that? What do you miss out on? What do you cheat yourself of? What do you steal from yourself when you are doing that? You know, and sometimes it's a dilemma, right? It's like I would like to have people come to these live and participate, right? And I want that, and so that means that there has to be some approval element to it, and that's part of it. But do I do it for that reason to get the numbers up, or do I do it because I love it and I love this connection and sharing, and hopefully enjoy more and more people being present in this? Like that's a dilemma, right? We need approval in some ways, but am I doing it for the approval, or am I doing it because I love it? Marge says, have you ever rehearsed a lie or justification before you even know you'll be? I catch myself doing that more and more all the time, and more than I want to admit, is what she said. And that's a very, very good point, is when we have to rehearse our excuses, when we have to rehearse our justifications in our lies, just think about how much energy that takes. I mean, we kind of probably get off on it to some degree of that. Um, how can I say this in a way that they're going to believe me? You know, how can I say this in a way that there's that piece of it, but there's a lot of worry and angst and all of that that's there when it isn't even needed. It's not needed because, like like you said, Marge, it may never even happen. You might not even need it, but you've rehearsed it. And the other piece of that, I was just going to say, oh crap, the the amount of time and energy and what that does to your own being of having to do that. And the other thing it steals from us is the the level to which we are not having an authentic moment with the individual that we're rehearsing this for. Um, and this is, I think, a really important piece for me, having been a marriage therapist, just being a human being. But there's so much, and when I was married, especially to my second husband, Todd, where we would actually have we would actually have authentic really conversations, and that was really amazing to have authentic conversations where there was no rehearsing, there was no stuff, because we were at the point where all we had was what was happening in the moment, and we would have these authentic truth moments, and those were some of the most exquisite moments of my life, when it was hard to be truthful and clear in that truth. And he would say, or I would say, well, where do we go from here? What are we going to do now? It's like, I don't know. There was no answers. It would just unfold from there. But the authenticness of the conversation, I had that experience in my life. And so you can hear how important that was, to put down all the rehearsing, put down all the justifications, put down the blame and the shame, put down who's responsible for what, and just show up. And that, every time that happens, it's those are the most exquisite moments of my life, truly, whether it's with my daughter or myself, or in the past, these people, my friends. It's the best. It's the best. So I think we cheat and we steal ourselves from those experiences because they're scary. But that's what we're here to have, I think. One of the other elements on my notes that I made was that life is messy. And when we're trying to constrain and contrive so that we're invulnerable, then we don't have to deal with the messiness. But then we miss out on that. We miss. Somebody says, I'm saying this like somebody saying, "Who cares if I'm missing out on the messiness? I don't want it." But in truth, we came here to be in this human experience. not to avoid and ignore it and and stay invulnerable because we can't. The more that we try to stay invulnerable, in a sense, the more that energetic vibrational nature will create some element of life that will create a catastrophe as in a disease or an accident or a financial situation challenge, all kinds of things that happen when we're trying to um, avoid messiness, basically. So my 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 perspective is I used to create a lot of messiness too, but I don't create messiness at all, as much as I can not create messiness. But life is messy. There's things that happen. This whole COVID thing, this whole, the fires in California. I mean, all kinds of things that are occurring in life that is just creates messiness. And then how do we be honest with ourselves and have the direct experience of this humanness? And again, this is where I wanted to go is, instead of lying about it or justifying or blaming the politicians or wherever wherever we go that takes us away from this direct experience, that's where we're lying and we're cheating and we're stealing ourselves from this human experience that we came to have, the exquisiteness of that. I think about the book, The Four Agreements, and I think it's a really valuable perspective. If you haven't read it yet, there's a link below that you'll be able to find it, for the Four Agreements. And the Four Agreements basically are, let me just start by saying, the way that it's written, it's like it starts out with, look, we've been domesticated. We have been imprinted and with data of what life is supposed to be like, what life is, and how we should be, and all of the approval seeking stuff and all the fear stuff. And that isn't working. Doesn't work for anybody. It doesn't work for anyone. No one likes to be blamed and shamed. As much as we like to blame and shame, nobody likes it. It doesn't work in terms of creating healthy relationships. And so why not give it up? So all that domestication, all that data, all that imprinting, it's like clearing out our computers of all those apps and data that we just don't need anymore. Let's come down to four basic agreements. And the first agreement is be impeccable with your word. That's pretty clear. Like, be impeccable. If you're going to say you're going to show up, show up. For me, it's important more and more and more that I be impeccable with my word to myself and to Gracie. Because Gracie's like my spiritual practice. Is like I say, let's go outside, and she's ready to go. And then I go, oh wait, I gotta check my emails. Oh, I gotta check this. Oh, I gotta, fold the laundry. It's like, I don't know what that's about, but I'm getting more impeccable to say, if I say I'm going outside with her, I go outside with her, because that's the practice. And it's not about being right or wrong. It's about, I said this, and so I'm going to be impeccable with my word and do it. It's a practice. So I don't do it always perfectly, and that's not the point. The point is being impeccable with my word. The second one is, don't take things personally. Each one of us is working out our own junk. And so if somebody does something, it has nothing to do with you, most likely. And where we think we are the center of the universe in somebody else's lives, we're not. We're just a center of the universe of our own life. And so when other people are being the way they're being, they're upset, they're saying things you don't like, that ability to practice not taking it personally is a great thing, because you get aligned with, that's not mine. And if I take it on as mine, I'm kind of lying, and I'm cheating them of that. This is their experience. I'm stealing it from them if I take it on. So I'm not going to take it on. I'm going to stay with myself and honor that I'm having the experience I'm having, but it has nothing to do with them. The third agreement is make no assumptions. So I love, in a sense, what Marge, when you're talking about rehearsing, right? There's an assumption that you're going to have to use these justifications. There's these assumptions that somebody's going to be upset with you if you do whatever. There's assumptions. We make assumptions all the time. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work in terms of having authentic relationships with ourselves and with other people, and with our little animals. Um, so make no assumptions. The fourth agreement is know that you're doing your best. Do your best and know you're doing your best. And that's all there is. And we don't need to justify that. We're human beings, and this is I'm saying this as if you've never heard that before. We're human beings, and as human beings, we've never done this before. I have never done this moment, this life, in this way, in this time. Never done this before. So I know I'm doing my best, and that's all I know. So every single moment of our life, every phase of our life, every stage of our life, every relationship, we've never done this before. And so knowing that we're showing up the best that we can is all we can do without, again, ridiculing ourselves or beating ourselves up for being less than, not knowing. We have no context for this moment except for what we create. And so we show up the way that we do in this moment to have what we have. So that number 4 is do the best that you can, and know you're doing the best that you can. And I love, and I'm saying this in terms of, I love the quality of relationship with myself when I say, okay, I'm doing the best that I can right now. This is the best that I can. And there's an honoring of myself in that, and there's a dignity in that. There's a connection with the deeper self, the part of me that's innocent and scared, to say we're doing the best we can, and that's a good thing. That's the best we can do. So, any thoughts coming up for you as you're here listening to this? We're coming to the end of our time together. We've got about 8 minutes. So, anything coming up for you? Any big takeaways? I got a couple of other things I'll say, but just anything else that I would love to hear what you guys are thinking or coming away with. I also want to share, this is one of the books, this is the first book I ever wrote. I wrote it when I was 56. I didn't start writing until I was 56. Didn't even think that I could write a book. So this book is called Self-Empowerment 101. And I've written 13 books altogether, but this one I like because it empowers us to begin this journey of self-acknowledgement, self-recognition, self-discovery, self-learning. And I have a lot of stuff in it. A lot of stuff in it. That's what a book is, a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of coaching questions, so that it's not just here's some information, but here's the questions I would be asking as a coach in these situations. So you can begin to ask yourself the same question and work with those questions if you want to with yourself. So that's a possibility. But I want to offer, it also is down in the descriptions below. There's some links to the books, some of my books down there. One of the things that I put in that, one of the chapters in here is called The Wisdom of No Escape. The Wisdom of No Escape. And I heard that term at some point, and it just made so much sense, especially when I was sailing across the Atlantic Ocean. I couldn't get off the boat, of course, and it was crazy and insane, and especially what was happening inside my head. And so it's like, okay, there's no escape from this situation. And we feel that in terms of perhaps the pandemic, or you might have some lost your job, or you may be dealing with who knows what. And so the wisdom of no escape gives us the opportunities to be with ourselves in a way that we wouldn't be otherwise. It gives us an opportunity to really sink into who is this and what is this and what is it I want. You know, we've heard a lot of people who, because of the pandemic, lost their job, but then they go, I wasn't happy there anyway. Here's what I really want to do. So the wisdom of no escape, it gives us an opportunity to maybe incubate and connect with ourselves in a way that with all our distractions, we just can't. When you're in a situation of no escape, you got to be in it. You got to be with it, and you got to deal with it or not. It's up to you, right? It's up to you. Um, and I looked at this in terms of the wisdom of no excuses. Um, and the wisdom of no excuses is really brings you to another level too of that place of, okay, I'm not going to make excuses. I'm not going to make excuses. I'm going to practice not making excuses. And I say it that way because if it's a practice, you don't have to get it right, and you don't have to worry about getting it right. But if you go, okay, just do it this way, then it's like, oh, you know, fuck that stuff. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to have to deal with the shame and the guilt, blah, blah, blah. Take it on as a practice. Okay, the wisdom of no excuse. I'm not going to make any excuses anymore, and I'm going to show up honest and authentic. And that's a cool practice. I think it's a cool practice because it's hard and in that element of, okay, I'm going to notice where I'm seeking approval. I'm going to notice those thoughts that have me aligned with what other people will think, what other people will say. Will people like me? Will people reject me? I'm going to watch for those. Even in terms of, this is so funny because it's like, what brand of cereal do you eat? It's like, oh, my mom wouldn't like me if I ate that brand of cereal. Those kinds of things, right? And quite often, those of us who are a little bit older and maybe have lost parents and family members, we're still thinking about what they would think of us. My mother wouldn't like me if I did this, or my father wouldn't approve of that, or my father would really approve of this, so therefore I will do that. So those kinds of relationships that are going on in our heads all the time, it's very fascinating when we become more conscious of that. And in a sense, that's the whole intention again of these lives, is to maybe have a joyful, interesting conversation about this stuff that is related to spirituality and related to everyday life and our humanness, and maybe just enjoying ourselves a little in that conversation. So let's see. David says, do you feel personality is a generic imprint or learned by early childhood experiences? Researched my personality as the intuitive feeler known as psychology extrovert introvert. I love solitude. Yeah, I think we have a I think that our divine essence is what it is. We have this divine essence of being, and that's related to joy and connection and engagement and creativity and all of those good things. And then I think we have a soul that has gone through a lot of different lifetimes, and it carries the imprints of bad things, good things, all of that kind of stuff. And that with this life, where it's like, okay, I better watch out for this, and okay, I better watch out for that, and I better be a good person, and I better be loving and generous. All of those things influence and create the personality. So I think as we get older, and if those of us who are wiser, we begin to deconstruct our personalities because we see that they actually interfere with us being our fullness and our most expressive self. So all of that. I'm I love solitude too. I live on an island, and I live at the end of a road, and I'm totally isolated. And I love it. And I love connecting with people at the same time in this way. That solitude is such a huge part of my life. But it wasn't part of my personality. It wasn't allowed in a sense. And so learning to love my introversion, my solitude part it's a gift. But that's one of those lie things, is a personality is something we developed out of the need to conform and constrain ourselves so that we be approved of. And now we get to do something different as we get older and wiser and more connected to the world. All right, you guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your presence. If you have anything else to say, please feel free to leave comments. David says, that's great. It's a pity I did not know years ago what what I begin to realize now. Absolutely. I totally agree that. And if we can support and empower people to be what we couldn't be earlier, that's a good thing. Let's keep doing that. All right, you guys. Thanks again. Thanks, Shannon. David, Marge, everybody. Bye for now. Debbie Wagner's here. Yes, thanks, Debbie. Bye for now.